At about 3:40 a.m. on October 4th, Ukrainian Special Operations Forces reported a direct strike on a Russian Bayan M-class small missile ship inside the Republic of Karelia. According to the Ukrainian SSO, the vessel identified as Grad was hit while sailing on Lake Onega, about 1,000 kilometers from the front line. The ship was built to carry Caliber-class cruise missiles with a range of up to 2,500 kilometers. Ukrainian sources said the explosion damaged its propulsion section, leaving the ship unable to move. This was the opening strike, and it marked one of the deepest and most unexpected operations Ukraine had carried out since the fight began. The attack happened far from the front, deep inside Russian territory, and directly affected a military asset that Moscow considered completely secure. The setup of this event shows why it mattered. Lake Onega is located at the core of the White Sea-Baltic Canal system, a 200-kilometer inland waterway connecting the Arctic Ocean to the Baltic Sea through St. Petersburg. Built in the 1930s, this route remains critical for Russia's commercial and military logistics. It allows naval units, including submarines and missile ships, to move between inland shipyards and open waters without exposure to NATO's observation in the Baltic. The area is surrounded by radar coverage and advanced air defense systems, and Moscow viewed it as a safe zone. The strike inside such territory changed that perception overnight. The impact was immediate and significant. The loss of a missile-capable vessel so far from the battlefield challenged Russia's long-held belief in strategic depth, the assumption that its size and geography protect it from external threats. An engagement inside a lake bordering Finland proved that modern warfare could reach anywhere, even into the most defended parts of the country. Analysts said the incident showed that physical distance no longer guarantees security. Modern unmanned systems and long-range precision weapons now allow Ukraine to strike targets once thought unreachable. The strike on Lake Onega therefore represented not only a tactical victory, but also a symbolic one, showing that Russia's internal waterways were no longer beyond danger. It was an attack that tested the limits of Russia's air defense network and showed that even in its northern heartland, there were vulnerabilities that technology and complacency had overlooked. The strike was immediate and widespread. The location of the attack, inside a lake region close to St. Petersburg, President Vladimir Putin's hometown, caused visible unease within Russia's political and military leadership. For years, the war in Ukraine had felt distant to people living in the country's major northern cities. Fighting was something that happened in Donbass or along the southern front, not near the industrial and administrative centers of Russia's northwest. The images of a damaged Russian warship burning on Lake Onega changed that feeling overnight. The idea that a Ukrainian strike could happen less than a day's drive from St. Petersburg deeply unsettled the public. Russian social media platforms filled with questions such as, "Where is our air defense?" and "Are we even safe in the north?" These discussions spread despite official censorship. For the Kremlin, the problem was no longer just military, it was psychological. The leadership now had to decide whether to move advanced air defense systems away from the front lines to protect interior targets or leave the heartland exposed. Either choice had costs. Redeploying systems would weaken the defense of occupied territories, but keeping them at the front risked new attacks closer to Russia's main population centers. Analysts began debating possible attack vectors soon after the incident. Two main theories gained attention. The first was that Ukraine used a long-range, one-way drone. In the past months, Kyiv had demonstrated drone systems capable of flying over 1,000 kilometers, often using radar blind zones over sparsely populated northern regions. Such drones could travel at low altitude, avoiding detection until the final moments of impact. The second theory was that the attack involved local sabotage or a proxy operation. Small teams working inside Russia may have launched short-range drones or placed explosive devices at the site itself. Both possibilities pointed to serious gaps in Russian internal security and surveillance. Either Ukraine had achieved an unprecedented long-range hit, or Russian counterintelligence had failed to prevent a close-range operation deep inside the country. Both scenarios were damaging to Moscow's image of control. The event also produced consequences for the White Sea-Baltic corridor, which serves as a crucial economic and military link between the Arctic ports and the Baltic region. The waterway supports about $30 billion worth of trade and resource transport each year, including timber, minerals, and military cargo. Following the strike, maritime insurers reportedly reassessed risk levels for vessels traveling through the route. This could lead to higher costs for shipping and insurance, making the canal less profitable and harder to operate. Naval planners faced a difficult decision: continue using the inland waterway under growing risk or reroute ships through the Baltic Sea, where NATO surveillance and patrol activity are constant. Both options carried strategic and financial penalties. Operationally, any disruption to this corridor limits logistical support for naval bases at Murmansk and Severodvinsk, both of which play key roles in Russia's Northern Fleet operations. What began as a single explosion on a lake had now developed into a wider problem for Russia's economy, its navy, and its sense of security. The strike quickly produced economic and logistical reverberations throughout northern Russia. The White Sea-Baltic Canal is not only a military passage, but also a key commercial route connecting inland industrial areas to export terminals on the Baltic Sea. The heightened security response after the incident increased inspection times, added military checkpoints, and restricted movement along several sections of the canal. These new controls caused delays and raised operational costs. Cargo transport companies reported longer waiting periods at locks and loading stations. Export schedules for timber, iron ore, and mineral shipments were disrupted. In some regions, factories that depended on timely deliveries of raw materials faced temporary shutdowns. Insurance premiums for vessels operating in the area rose sharply, and some shipping companies began looking for alternative routes despite longer distances and higher expenses. This was an early sign of how one localized attack could create a chain reaction that spread far beyond its original target. The additional costs of security, slower cargo movement, and reduced insurance coverage cut directly into regional revenue and increased financial pressure on local administrations. Economists describe the event as a clear example of how modern warfare now overlaps with trade and logistics, where every military hit can quickly turn into an economic problem. The information warfare dimension of the event became visible within hours. Videos and satellite images of the burning ship began circulating online before Russian state media issued any official statement. Civilian tracking groups posted footage that appeared to show smoke rising from Lake Onega, contradicting early Russian claims that the situation was under control. When government channels finally acknowledged the event, they referred to it as a localized accident and avoided mentioning Ukraine. However, the visual evidence spread too fast to contain. The narrative of a fortress Russia capable of protecting its own interior was damaged. Independent observers said that for many Russians, this was the first time the war felt close to home. The quick flow of information from open sources, satellite imagery, local residents, and unofficial military blogs overpowered the government's efforts to shape public perception. Western analysts noted that this kind of psychological impact could weaken internal morale more effectively than losses on the battlefield. It showed that Russia's communication systems, like its defenses, could be bypassed by transparency and speed. The strategic fallout from the Lake Onega strike went beyond immediate military losses. The attack forced Russia's defense command to reassess how to allocate its limited air defense assets. Advanced systems such as the S-400, S-300, and Pantsir are already heavily concentrated along the Ukrainian front and in major cities. Protecting deep interior regions like Karelia or the canal network would require moving some of these systems away from active combat zones. Military planners now face an impossible equation: defend every strategic point across 11 time zones or accept the risk of further interior strikes. Either decision carries long-term costs. Experts called it a textbook example of overextension, an empire too large to protect completely. Each redeployment weakens another area, leaving gaps that Ukraine can exploit. The Lake Onega strike revealed that even vast territory can become a burden when technology allows small, precise attacks to reach anywhere. The incident sent the clear message that Ukraine wanted to deliver clearly. No part of Russia is beyond reach. The strike on Lake Onega proved that geography, which Russia has long relied on as protection, has now become a weakness. For more than a century, Moscow's military strategy depended on the country's size and the idea that its vast territory would make deep attacks nearly impossible. That assumption no longer holds. The destruction of a warship in the center of the country showed that modern warfare is about precision and technology, not distance. A single drone, guided by accurate intelligence, can cause economic, political, and psychological shock. The sinking of the Grad on a lake once considered completely safe broke the illusion of a secure homeland. It also demonstrated Ukraine's growing ability to strike symbolic targets that carry more meaning than immediate battlefield value. Analysts explained that such actions weaken confidence within Russia's ruling class and force the military to spend time and resources defending areas that were never previously threatened. The Kremlin's claim that the northern regions were safe from attack was now in question. The strike did not only destroy a vessel, it exposed how vulnerable the Russian state has become in protecting its critical infrastructure. The event represents a turning point in how this conflict is fought. Ukraine's new approach, combining intelligence, innovation, and precision, has expanded the war far beyond the front lines. By hitting a target over 1,000 kilometers from active combat, Kyiv showed that it can apply pressure through asymmetric methods rather than direct confrontation. The flames on Lake Onega symbolize more than the loss of a single ship. They mark the breakdown of Russia's traditional sense of safety. The White Sea-Baltic Canal, once seen as a strategic lifeline, is now viewed as a potential liability. Every vessel that moves through it carries both financial and security risk. Economically, the canal's disruption limits trade, raises costs, and reduces investor confidence. Militarily, it restricts the movement of small naval ships between internal bases and open waters. Politically, it shows that Russia can no longer guarantee protection for its own core regions. The attack also illustrated how information spreads faster than censorship can react. The sight of smoke over the northern lakes reached millions online before any official explanation. The result was public doubt and frustration within Russia's population. The overall impact of the strike extends beyond its physical damage. It has reshaped the perception of what is possible in this war. Ukraine's ability to reach so deep into Russian territory reveals that modern conflict is no longer defined by borders. Every pipeline, bridge, or canal is now a potential front. The Lake Onega attack demonstrated that strategic depth, once Russia's greatest advantage, has turned into a growing vulnerability. The event marks a shift in the nature of the conflict, where precision and reach decide power more than numbers or geography.